Alright, hello and welcome to a budget Magic deck tech. So this is an arena budget deck. So we're not looking at card prices, we're looking at wild card ratios. So we are doing the Turbo Cat or the Kitty Cat combo of a self-sacrifice deck, and we have it down to 3 Mythics, 4 Rares and 15 Uncommons. So let's have a full look at the deck list here. You can see here, this is our distribution. We have 22 basic swamps as our land base, which is supplied to you from just starting the game. The rest is columns, so we have 3 Mythics, Yagra the Eater of All, 4 Scavenger's Talent. Our uncommons are Fatal Push, Witch's Oven, Albed Scavengers, Cauldron Familiar, and the rest of our deck is commons, ranging from Resentful Revelation, Deadly Dispute, Infestation Sage, Greedy Freebooter, and Duress. So, with that in mind, let's talk about the deck. What is this deck built around? Well, this is the core of the deck. It is a Cauldron Familiar Witch's Oven deck. For those of you who don't know, Cauldron Familiar is a 1 mana 1/1 with the ability of when it enters, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. You may also sack a food to return it to the battlefield from your graveyard. You combine that with the Witch's Oven, which lets you tap it to sack a creature to create a food, and you see the loop. You sack the familiar to make a food, you then sack the food to bring back the familiar. This creates a loop like that. We have the supporting package of Scavenger's Talent and Yagra Eater of All, which essentially turns this into a powerful combo deck. So Scavenger's Talent is whenever one or more creatures you control die, you make a food token. Only triggers once a turn, so it generates us an extra food when we start a loop each turn. At level 2, for 1 in the black, whenever we sack a permanent, a player mills 2 cards. We will target ourselves primarily because that's really important. And level 3, at the beginning of our end step, we may sacrifice 3 other non-land permanents, and if we do, reanimate a creature with a finality counter. So what we want to do is set up the loop of Cauldron Familiar and the Witch's Oven, looping it round, milling ourselves with Scavenger's Talent to get a Cauldron from 2 Cauldron Familiars and a Yagra in the graveyard. We then trigger the Scavenger's Talent to level 3, reanimate Yagra, and when Yagra is on the battlefield, or Yagra, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, it is a 6/6 for 5 mana. It has Ward, Sacrifice a Food, and turns all other creatures into food in addition to their other types. And whenever a food is sacked, you put 2 counters on it. So, with Yagra on the field, the Cauldron Familiar becomes a food that can be sacked to a different Cauldron Familiar in your graveyard, essentially making an infinite loop of sacking the Cauldron Familiar on the field to reanimate the one in the graveyard, looping it around like that. Pretty basic, very solid package, easy to pull off. The rest of our deck, we have Infestation Sage and Freebooter as cheap sack fodder that also leaves behind additional bodies. Basically stuff we can use to sack to our oven or give us advantage that way. They have good def triggers, so don't be afraid to sack them to generate other permanents. As we said with Scavenger's Talent, we need additional permanents. We also have Albed Scavengers. This is 3 mana for a 2/3 that whenever a creature or an artifact goes to our graveyard, we drain and gain a life. This is basically our replacement for Mayhem Devil. Mayhem Devil is an uncommon, however, because Mayhem Devil is Rakdos in identity, if we add Rakdos we have to power up the mana base, which then diverts more away from it. So this is a good alternative. Ultimately it's not as good, but it is the good option here. It just can generate us a bunch of life and other stuff and value as we go through the loop. Also pretty relevant considering we're in a heavy aggro meta. With that in mind, we have other ways to dig and find stuff. We have Resentful Revelation for 1 in the black to look at 3 cards, 1 in our hand, 2 in the graveyard. Also has Flashback. And Deadly Dispute, the proper powerhouse of 1 in the black to sack a creature or an artifact and draw 2 cards and create a treasure. Super relevant here because this we basically make a ton of extra food going through the loops. Also, this is probably one of the only ways we can hard cast a Yagra with the treasure made from this if we have to, but you know, ideally we don't want to do that because that's our full combo. And finally, our last piece is just our general sustainability pieces. We have Duress and Battle at the Bridge, aka Fatal Push here, to just disrupt and buy us some time and just see if we can set up the full combo. That's the tech. So we have here an additional gameplay video, 1 second. Alright, here we are in best of 1, and I wanted to show this match off in particular because we get an early start with the Scavenger's Talent, and we are up against Izzet, which is one of the, not the strongest, but it's one of the most prominent decks in the format. So as you can see here, it's turn 2 and we've already been able to set up essentially most of our loop. We are leaving Cauldron Familiar down for now because I want the freebooter to potentially give us advantage if we kill it. Also, it's a good chump blocker if we get absolutely dumpstered by Corey Steel Monks. We can't block the equipped monk that favorably because it has trample. However, we could be alright for now. So we're down to 18. With that in mind, let's get this up to level 2 and now play the Cauldron Familiar. So now we are set up. All we need to do now is buy time, mill ourselves, find enough to establish the combo and level 3 the Scavenger's Talent. But we've got to ultimately see if we can go off before our opponent here. We are playing in best of 1. As I said before, I haven't established a sideboard for this deck because you can craft a sideboard with what you have available and build on it as you want to go there. This budget deck is purely for anyone who just wants to start grinding into Pioneer, playing the decks and start building towards the optimized best of 3. So I felt the best way to start here was to get that in the best of 1. So let's start the loop. So sack the Cauldron Familiar to the oven, mill ourselves, bring back. They're tapped out here. I always say it's better to hold back if they're not tapped out. So we're on 17. Resentful Revelation. We find Albed Scavengers. Nothing else, unfortunately. So we're going to hold back. This is an earlier build which was using Feed the Swarm in face of Fatal Push. In case of Graveyard hating the main board, but didn't say. I am going to let this die because it will make us a food, but also I want to make sure we have a way to sack the cat in case they have a random red spell that could also exile the cat instead. With this in mind though, we are going to have to sack here to mill ourselves. We've hit our Tenacious Underdog as another experiment card. As I said before, once you got the core of the deck, you can build anything else you want around it. This felt unnecessary. I'm guessing they were desperate for a spell. But essentially what I don't think they realize now is, yeah, they've got a lethal swing here with the Phoenixes. Well, not quite lethal, but watch what happens here. So we can return a Cauldron, mill. We find a second Cauldron, so we can bring that back. See what else we mill. There's the Ygritte. So now we're set up. So let's block both just in case. We go down to 10. On our turn, we play our land, bring a Cauldron Familiar back, mill ourselves. So now get this up to level 3 with a Scavenger's Talent. Here's the main thing. I'm looking at the way to do this. So ultimately, we need 3 permanents and a cat on the battlefield. So my best option here is sack this because we'll get a food from Scavenger's Talent and a food from the cat. And that leaves us with enough permanents to do this. So we sack a cat, bring that back, mill 2. And now we get to bring back Ygritte and start milling the opponent. And now we've achieved the combo as expressed in the thing, because now Cauldron Familiar sacks to a Cauldron Familiar, and we can either drain them out or mill them out, whichever way we want to do it, and our opponent concedes. So that's a good demonstration of the deck.